Let me read to you now from Scripture. I'm reading in Mark's Gospel, continuing a journey through Mark, and just reading just a few verses that we find in Mark chapter 6, verses 30 through to 34. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. Then, because so many people were coming and going that they didn't even have the chance to eat, he said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves in a boat to a solitary place. But many who saw them leaving that place recognized them and ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began teaching them many things. The disciples returned from their preaching, teaching and healing mission and began to report to Jesus what had happened, what they'd observed. They would be physically and spiritually exhausted from their work. It's what led Jesus perhaps to say, let's go to a quiet place. He himself knew and wanted times when he needed to be alone, and he would know that that's what the disciples needed. But the demands of the people were so great that he was surrounded by crowds. They never let him go. So often Jesus is interrupted, and in the interruption, God is seen at work. You know, I've often said to people in congregations when preaching and teaching that we learn so much in life through the interruptions, and the interruptions are so important as we seek God's purpose. The people ran from the various towns, and if you go to the Galilee and you move to that northwestern part where Capernaum is, you can see the roads, how people would run from one place to another. And his compassion becomes the setting for so much of his teaching, a central plank, if you like, to his ministry. But some of the verses in this passage, as I usually do, I want to draw your attention to. The apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. They were enthusiastic. They had got things they wanted to say. I suppose in modern terms, they call it a debriefing. They needed to tell him. They'd been sent by him, so they'd every reason now to tell him what had happened. But it was a difficult time to do so. They wanted to do that, but so many people were coming and going, they didn't even have a chance to have some food, no time to eat. So even though they were bursting to tell it, even though they were with him, there wasn't really the opportunity in that moment to tell him all that they needed to say. But we read on in verse 33, there's something that's significant. But many who saw them leaving recognized them, ran on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of him. So not only were the crowds around him then, as he moved to be in that quiet place, the crowds would run along the roads, and it was impossible for Jesus and the disciples to get some space. In modern terms, the kids would say, give us a break. I need some space to talk to Jesus. Those disciples were desperate to do so. But it's the attitude of Jesus that not only defines this moment, but I think it defines the whole ministry of Jesus. When Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. Oh, compassion. Compassion is a very powerful, very meaningful Christian word. I think it's the power of our evangelism. I think it's the power of our service. It's what makes and defines what we try to do as Christian people in the world. Compassion. You see, compassion has two halves to it, but the second is passion. It's not a weak word. It's a very strong word. And when you see compassion in people, it often results in some of the most amazing things. A recent time of outreach at Wesley Mission, we used as the theme compassion. And we found it was a door, it was a window into people's lives because they need to receive compassion. People who are suffering, people who are hurting, people who are confused. What they need is compassion. What they need is people ready to listen to them. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. You just have to be there. And compassion is practical. It's expressional. It's something that is really seen. And in the ministry of Jesus, you see it again and again. He touched people who hadn't been touched. He reached out to those who were on the edge of the crowd. He found time for people. And when the woman came up behind him, he said, "Who touched me?" Even though they were not interested, he was interested because he took a concern for all people. So I think this word compassion defines not only the passage we've looked at today, but I think it becomes a decisive direction, if you like, for the ministry of Jesus as it will continue from here on and will, of course, lead to the cross itself.